All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking some truly staggering allegations from our source material that suggest the world's most popular sport is being heavily manipulated by global politics. We are going to focus specifically on FIFA's hidden $3 billion corruption schemes, breaking down claims that the beautiful game might actually just be a politically motivated financial engine.
It brings up a really provocative question, is the beautiful game actually rigged? Because when you look at the on-pitch inconsistencies right alongside these massive global scandals, you kind of have to wonder if football is functioning less as a fair competition and way more as a sophisticated political and financial tool for the world's elite. To figure this out, we're going to follow the money through 6 key areas. We're looking at the $3 billion engine, the history of FIFA corruption, manipulating matches for profit, the ties between politicians and football presidents, geopolitics and double standards, and finally, modern bread and circuses. Let's get into it. Okay, part 1. The $3 billion football engine. At the absolute core of all these allegations is the staggering amount of cash generated by FIFA's 4-year World Cup cycle. To put that into perspective, just look at the scale here. The International Cricket Council pulls in an estimated $2.4 billion over a 4-year cycle. Massive, right? Well, FIFA rakes in a record-breaking $3 billion in that same time frame, and according to the analysis, it's exactly this massive cash flow that creates the perfect breeding ground for these hidden corruption schemes. The source dives deep into Gianni Infantino's revenue model. The alleged goal here? Maximize the money pool so funds can be distributed to member states, which essentially buys votes for re-election. In fact, the analysis cites this financial motive as the real reason the World Cup expanded from 32 to 48 teams. Oh, and it gets wilder. Whistleblower reports actually allege that FIFA vice presidents are receiving millions in secret bonuses. Obviously a massive red flag for institutional corruption. Moving to part 2, the history of FIFA corruption. Before we look at today's on-pitch controversies, it's super important to remember this is absolutely not a new phenomenon. The source traces this legacy right back to those dramatic Zurich hotel arrests of FIFA officials in 2015, which, as you probably remember, ultimately forced then-President Sepp Blatter to resign. And those arrests? They were driven by massive bribery allegations surrounding the incredibly lucrative hosting rights for the 2018 World Cup in Russia and 2022 in Qatar. Part 3. Manipulating matches for profit. So how does this giant macro-level money machine actually connect to the micro-level, the actual matches we watch on TV? Well, critics in the report argue there are just way too many suspicious coincidences. For example, former referees have pointed out highly inconsistent VAR, or video assistant referee decisions, noting they often magically seem to favor certain high-profile teams. Then you add political pressure to the mix. You've got figures like Andrew Giuliani demanding fair administration because of how much money the U.S. spends, and Donald Trump allegedly bragging about calling Infantino directly to revoke a U.S. player's red card. Meanwhile, teams that are out of political favor, like Iran, reportedly face incredibly harsh treatment, like being forced to travel to Mexico without proper breaks. Now think about this drop. $3,000 down to just $10. That was the massive ticket price crash that happened during a tournament when Cristiano Ronaldo's presence in a single match was suddenly threatened. Here's what the source says happened. Ronaldo was supposed to serve a suspension for an elbowing incident, but after some high-level political dinners at the White House involving the Saudi crown prince, that suspension was conveniently delayed. The alleged reason? To make sure he played the opening games. Keeping global superstars on the pitch protects viewership, which saves FIFA and its broadcast partners from what was estimated to be a catastrophic 60% drop in overall revenue. It's all about protecting the investment. All right, part 4, politicians and football presidents. Let's see how this financial manipulation bleeds into some very cozy relationships with world leaders. Take this really telling headline from Politico. Looking for a Messi miracle. The source uses this to explain how Argentine President Javier Milei desperately needed a World Cup victory to distract his citizens from some pretty severe domestic turmoil. To maintain power during a crippling economic crisis, we're talking needing a $20 billion U.S. bailout and facing a 58% negative public view, Milei aligned heavily with Donald Trump. He pulled out of the Paris Agreement and sidelined BRICS. In return, the U.S. backed Argentina over the U.K. regarding the Falkland Islands. And right in the middle of this geopolitical dance, Gianni Infantino cemented his own political alliances by opening a brand new FIFA office in Trump Tower and, bizarrely enough, awarded Trump a so-called FIFA Peace Prize. Which brings us to Part 5, Geopolitics and Double Standards. This is where we get into the most politically charged claims in the source material. The accusation that FIFA applies its rules based purely on political alliances rather than human rights. The analysis points to what it calls a stark double standard. On one hand, you had the swift, decisive ban of Russia from the World Cup and UEFA tournaments following geopolitical conflicts. But contrast that with FIFA's complete inaction regarding Israel, despite the ongoing and devastating conflict in Gaza. The reports detail some truly devastating figures, the deaths of over 900 athletes, including 420 footballers. That includes the Palestinian star goalkeeper, an assistant coach, and a player known as the Palestinian Pele. The source also notes reports of female players being detained. Furthermore, the claim here is that FIFA is actively violating its own rules by allowing Israeli leagues to play matches in West Bank settlements that have actually been deemed illegal by the UN, totally ignoring rulings from Amnesty International and the International Court of Justice. So, what was Infantino's alleged solution? Well, in a move critics in the report describe as completely absurd and tone-deaf, he reportedly proposed an under-15 match between Israel and Palestine to open a tournament. Observers argue this just completely ignores the grim reality on the ground and the devastated youth populations. They also point out a massive irony. Infantino actually holds citizenship in Lebanon, another nation involved in the region's tensions, yet he's the one pushing forward with these bizarre PR-focused initiatives. Finally, Part 6, Modern Bread and Circuses. So how does all this backroom dealing tie directly back to you, the fan, and the psychological role of sports today? Think about the ancient Roman concept of bread and circuses. It's a political strategy used to appease the masses by just giving them entertainment, distracting them from systemic failures. The overarching argument of this explainer is that leaders like Trump and Milei and the executives at FIFA are basically using the World Cup as a massive, hyper-entertaining distraction. It's designed to keep citizens cheering at a screen instead of protesting against collapsing infrastructure, economic ruin, or geopolitical atrocities. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought from the source material. In a modern world where powerful actors routinely manipulate global financial markets and geopolitics for their own survival, is it really so far-fetched to believe that manipulate a football match? When billions of dollars and geopolitical stability are on the line, the beautiful game might just be another piece on the chessboard. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, something to think about the next time you watch a match.